everyone, it's me again and my friend Scott Buckley playing us music. This is week 4 already of painting still lifes, and this week I'm demonstrating painting fruit and vegetables. I couldn't quite make up my mind which fruit or veg to paint, so as you just saw with the little preview, I decided to paint a selection in my Trug, because this way I can show the method of painting more than one or two items of fruit or veg. This demo may take quite a while because it's quite a complicated one and quite a lot to do, so there may be more stops than usual. So put on a nice big pot of coffee and stop and start as it pleases you. And I'll talk through the various methods and colours as I go along, because it's going to be the easiest way, I think. And I spent quite a lot of time on my initial drawing, as I just want to show you now. But these are the colours, so obviously lots of fruit and vegetables, lots of different colours, lots of paint to get ready and sort of have at hand. So first of all, I did a sketch of the Trug, or part of the Trug. I didn't worry about painting the back area because I knew it wouldn't actually be in my picture. So I actually did that drawing first. But I wanted to get the placement right on the page, which obviously that isn't. So after I did a sketch, I then traced it. And used my trace down paper, which is like carbon paper, but actually not so messy, to put underneath to trace the Trug down onto the page when I then went on and painted and did the drawing of the fruit and veg as well. So I hope you can see my drawing. I've kept it quite faint because I don't want it, as I always say, I don't want too much of that showing up. But it's quite a precise drawing, and it's got to be with something like a bowl or a Trug or basket or whatever you might decide to do if you do something like that. So make sure you get that initial drawing right, because if the angle or the size or shape of the bowl or whatever isn't right, then it's going to throw the whole thing out. I then went on to, after my drawing, to mask off some of the shine. You can just leave white paper, but I thought, you know, it might be easy for you to use on the fruit and veg, because it does have quite a lot of shine, especially things like tomatoes and peppers and oranges. Carrots not so much. But I'm going to start off painting the Trug, and I've got my browns out again. So I'll paint the Trug first, and then I think I'll go ahead and stop and then get the paint all ready for the fruit and veg and paint that after. So I'm painting the base of I'm going to work quite wet again, because that will give me lots of movement in it and make it nice and loose. I don't want to get too tight with this. So I'm painting the actual base of the Trug and the little light edges in a yellow ochre, because that's a cooler colour than the raw sienna, which is a little bit more appropriate for this particular item. So I'm putting the light down first, the light colours down first. And I'm using my dagger brush for painting this. I've added a little bit of the raw umber with the yellow ochre just to take a little bit of the yellowness away. And I'll go back and put shadows on in a minute. Just putting the base down. Maybe you've got a basket you might like to paint and put some fruit or veg in. You don't have to paint obviously exactly what I'm painting, but this is giving you an idea of something that could be done. Or you may just want to paint some fruit or some vegetables on its own this week, but make sure you make up a nice interesting composition. And for those of you who've painted fruit and veg before, try to challenge yourself. Right, so it gets darker now in places. I think I'll do the handle. So I've got a mixture of burnt sienna, raw umber and a little bit of alizarin in there because it's got a reddy tinge to it. Working in the direction that I see the markings in it. Trying not to rub should be wearing my little glove really, because that would save me from rubbing off my masking fluid with my hand. Gets a bit lighter here where it's bent. And even if it didn't, and I couldn't see that, I would think about putting it lighter there, because that always gives, anything that you can do to give form to your work, then that's what you need to think about. Some little screws in this handle here. It's quite thrown together, this wooden thing. Nice though. Quite appropriate. So it gets darker under here. So this dagger brush is quite good for this kind of thing because it's got a nice edge to it. A nice point, so you can work with the point or you can work with it flat. It's a little rough bit of wood there. So all of these things are going to help to keep the interest in the painting. Any of the little quirky things that you might see, don't be afraid to put them in. Right. While it's still damp, I'm just going to drop a few more marks in because I don't want it to look too smooth. It's got texture. I also don't want to spend too much time on this Trug because I've got a lot of fruit to paint. So I think I'll stop, do the other dark area on the Trug and come back again. Right, I've done a bit more of that Trug. I'm going to have to build up the colours, I think, here and there a little bit more and put a few darks in, but I am actually trying to keep this side my lighter side. So hopefully there's a little bit of light going on the corner there. I've painted one little foot in. I'll do the other one now using raw umber. Because it's wood, it's got a certain amount of texture and isn't smooth, so I'm trying to at the same time create little touches of texture into the wood as well. I got a bit wet over here. It'll be fine. So you'll know which areas to allow to dry before painting next to them. I'm having to sort of wing it and don't have the time to allow areas to dry, but take your time over what you're doing and you'll know where to wait. But it's surprising how well it all dries up in the end. You just mustn't judge it too soon. And don't keep trying to fix things up while they're still wet. Right, that's the foot done. Now I need to get a little bit of depth going on behind here. These are the little areas that you can see inside the trug, where shadow is cast from one little overlap to another. It's all made up of overlapping nice little pieces of wood, little flat pieces of wood, handmade, I guess. Awkward this way. Sorry if my hand is in the way. There. So a few markings on the wood to even the smoother areas is going to help. So I'm popping those in as I go. A bit more shadow all the way under here. So all of these colours actually mingle quite well together and look quite nice together. Right. Dark in there. So any opportunity to put dark in, then take it. Little screw there, and another one here. And so I'm going to leave that trug for the moment. Let it dry and get my fruit colours and vegetable colours ready. So I'll stop for a second. Right, I had a bit of a wait there because I couldn't put the hairdryer on because of the masking fluid. So I'm going to start on the fruit and veg now, and I'm going to start over this side with carrots. And the carrots I've painted with cadmium orange, with some permanent mauve and some blue, and very little masking fluid, just a couple of little marks where I could see some light shining on them, but they're not actually that shiny, to be honest. They're quite opaque. So I've actually just put a little bit of transparent orange over the top of that. I've got a round brush out, one that hasn't got ever such a good point, but it's enough, and I didn't want anything too pointy, to be honest, for the fruit and veg, because they're very rounded looking, and I don't really want to get very pointy marks, so I've chosen this round brush that's a size 8, but it's quite a large brush. So I'll paint these carrots the colour that I see underneath and put the shadowy colours on the top when it's a little bit drier, but not completely dry because I want them to soften. So I'll keep the one in the front a little bit lighter, I think. I haven't softened my drawing very much today, so that hopefully you can see the shapes that I'm working on here. I'm working on a Bockingford paper today, and that's not a paper I use very often. I'm finding it a little bit difficult because I'm not used to it. There we go. So the carrot tops, I'll paint just a few of them, I think, to start with, and then put the rest in when I turn off, because there are quite a lot of them and that's going to take time. All of my greens I've used today with mixing together the Aureolin and the Windsor Blue red shade. The carrot tops are very light and yellowy near the actual vegetable, but then they get greener as they grow up. So I'm going to try and vary those a little bit. That blue is quite good actually, because some of them actually do look quite blue. I think as they get older they change colour. A little bit more yellow down here where it's light, and they're coming away, the greenery comes away from the carrot. So carrots can be quite nice to paint because they've got, usually I haven't got any of the little leaves on here, but if you could get hold of some with some leaf, they're actually really pretty. Got the sword brush out now for this. Right. I do seem to say right quite a lot. Not quite sure what that means. Wait and see what happens when that dries. And I'll paint the rest in at some point when I turn off. But I think I can come back now and put a little bit more work into those, at least one or two of the carrots, if not all of them. So I've just actually given them another layer before I put the... They didn't seem quite bright enough to me. I'm getting used to this paper now. Right, I'll come back to those. And I'll now work on that onion at the back there. So that little onion is a brown onion, and I've got a red one sitting in front of it. And the brown onion I've painted with burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, with some ultramarine blue for the markings. So I'm mixing together the burnt sienna with a little touch of the alizarin. And the little stalky bits tend to get a bit lighter at the top there. Masked off a few little stripy areas, but it's still fine to leave a bit more light and white paper and go right over the top of the masking. Trying to remember all the time that my light side is over here. There's a little bit of skin that's peeled up, which is going to be lighter. So any little bits of interest like that, try to capture them. Well, that wasn't too much trouble. I'm getting used to the paper now. It doesn't, this Bockingford is quite nice in that it will hold the paint and the water for quite a long time. That's why it's still sitting on the carrots. Right, that's okay. I don't need to put any more work into that at the moment, so I'll now work on the red onion, I think. And for that I've used Pearline Violet, Alizarin Crimson and Payne's Grey. Okay, so I'm mixing it together. Needs a bit more red. A bit more still. Better. But I think I'll put a little bit of actual red in it as well. A bit of cad-free red. That will give it some nice warmth. Right, okay. So lots of different tones in this red onion. The skin is partly peeled off in places, so you can create all sorts of markings with it and change the tones. There's light shining on the top. I should have masked off the little roots, but I didn't. have to do something about that. Paint them a darker colour or something. Make sure they stay in the basket and they don't leak over the edge. So I'm working quite wet so that these colours will blend one into another. Nice light area there. And there is masking on that one as well. So now for the little roots and its stalk, which is sticking right up here. Okay, it's a little scruffy stalk. Thinking what I could do here to create the roots, I could actually just use a little bit of sgraffito with my pen. Good. There's always a way. And let's see what happens now when we take off the masking on that one. But I think a little bit more depth under here. Send it back behind the carrot. Good. Now I think is a good time just to pop back onto this onion here with some blue and put some of those little stripy markings in that I see, softening them as I go. And I can do the same with this when the time comes. I think the carrots could do with a little bit of something now as well. They just have little sort of stripy areas which I'm putting in with the colour that I was using on the onion. That's better. No, really dark just in there. So a little bit of detail going on. That one's still very wet, so I'm not going to do very much on there right now. Okay. Just bring that onion up a little bit more. So keeping an eye out all the time where you can pop a little bit more colour on when you feel the time is right. Because several of these pieces of fruit and these vegetables are quite nice and bright in colour. So I've brought them both up a little bit more while it was still just damp but not wet. Right, now I'm going to go to the pepper. There's a red pepper sitting here, and that colour is Cadbury red, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, and Payne's grey, and obviously the stalk is the green that I've already suggested. So here's the Cadbury red. Bit of alizarin on that as well. I need to find a different red for this. Then I'll be painting because I'll be painting the tomatoes, which are quite close to this pepper, and so they've got to be different. Right. Straight over the masking fluid there. Working around an orange. And it's sitting behind the handle. So these actually have quite a smooth edge, so I'm trying to capture that. And it's showing also the other side of the handle, which helps to give perspective. So everything's overlapping again, so thinking about the overlapping thing with this still life. Lots of depth down here. Right, that wasn't too difficult. I'm not going to put any shadow on there at the moment, it's a bit wet, but I think I can work on the little stalk, which is sticking up, giving a bit of height to the picture, and that's got quite a lot of blue in it as well. A bit of shine there where I'll put the masking. It's very stripy looking, so try to get some stripes into that. Then it got a little lighter area here where it's broken off. So like I was saying last week, try to get it to know your subject and what happens with it before you start. So that's got some form now. Good. It's an orange here. So I don't know if you can see, but I've actually dotted a little bit of masking fluid on the orange and the tangerine because they have little sort of light marks, little sort of textured light and dark marks on them. So let's see how that works out. I haven't painted an orange for a long time. So I've got a different orange going on to the cadmium orange that I used for the carrots. This actually is transparent orange, which is a gorgeous colour. Not working wet on wet with this, I didn't want that to run away with me. I'm finding this paper a little bit easier to work on without the wet on wet situation. So now I need to lift some light off to give that orange some form. And it comes through the other side. not exactly round, this orange. And it's too soon, I think. Or maybe if I use my pointy brush. To put a little bit of shape into it while it's still wet, that might help. There's nothing very definite about an orange. So let's see what happens to that when it dries up. I've got to put the little area in that held the stalk. I think that'll dry up all right. There's some texture going on in there. Right, now for the tangerine, which I'm going to use a bit more cadmium orange on that one, so it's slightly different to the big orange. Again, it's poking through the other side, and then dotting just a bit more of that transparent orange on the top. So hopefully that's looking a little bit different. Now there's some shadow on this pepper. So hopefully that's given that a little bit more shape. It's looking quite purple down here, which is very much in shadow. That's looking better, and the shine is going to make a huge difference. I've got to put little areas of depth in between some of these vegetables and things a bit later, when everything else is dry. But just keep an eye on things, and if you have an idea or feel something needs taken care of, do it. Right, tomatoes. What have we got? Cadbury Scarlet this time, alizarin and Payne's Grey. So tomatoes can be a little bit more orange than the pepper, I think. So if I mix that in with the pepper colour, see what we get. Yeah, I think that's quite a good tomato colour. So let's go with that. Start with this little one at the back here. I've got a more pointy brush out now because I've got to work between things a little bit more. Yeah, that's not the same as the pepper at all, so that's a good thing. And they're tomatoes that are on the vine, so I can put the stalk in afterwards. And the little leaves, so I'm working around those areas. So another good reason to have a good point on my brush. And I've masked them so I can go all the way over the over the top. It's very relaxing music from Scott Buckley. I do like it. Not that I'm feeling that relaxed. Maybe after. I hope you are. Right. If you have a bunch of anything or one thing sitting very close to another, do allow yourself time for it to dry rather than have to work close to it the way I am, because that's just adding another challenge that you don't really need, to be honest, but I don't have a choice. I'd have to stop the video too many times. I'm just putting a bit of depth down there. I might just pull a little bit more light off there, although there is some masking to come off. I'll just take a little bit more as well. Right, now the one in front. These are the things that have got the most shine, I think, of all. Nice tomato. Put some dark underneath it. A little bit. And I can tidy up these edges when I actually come to putting in the dark areas. Didn't mean to do that. It's my little eradicator brush though, it does a good job. Right, there's another little one here. In fact, I'll just stop while I finish the tomatoes and then I'll go on to the fennel. Back again. Finished the tomatoes, apart from putting in the stalks. So I think I'll work on the fennel before I do that. I've also put 2 tomatoes down there that have fallen off the vine. Not much work to do in the fennel because it's all sort of yellow and green and a sort of grey colour. But the stalks are quite a nice pale green. Quite a lot of yellow in them and stripy. So there we go. I wish it's got all the fennel leaves on there. They're very pretty. There's only a little bit. So I'm using my pointy brush still. There's light there, but I've put some masking fluid. Quite a lot of blue in this green as well, which is lovely. I like it when there's blue in the green and yellow. Yeah. Now it starts to get lighter, paler and stripy. Mustn't touch the tomatoes, they're still a bit wet. Bit more shadow under here, so I've sort of cockled up a greeny grey there with a little bit of the purple in it, a little bit of the Payne's grey, a little bit of the Perylene violet, which has made a bit of a grey. Right, it goes right over here. And it's very bulbous here, so I must keep that light, otherwise it won't look bulbous at all. Pop some shadow under there. A bit more of that shadowy colour under here, where its little roots were. Some shadow here. You've got to put some colour in it, otherwise it's not going to have any form at all. Can you hear the door rattling? That's the cat now trying to get in. She obviously thinks I've taken too long. Perhaps the tech team centre. There we go. Bit of masking to come off there. So that's that. Now I need to just pop some depth in places, and I think I'm nearly there, apart from taking off the masking fluid and grounding it. So Payne's grey there. Pop it in any other colour that you've got in your palette just to make it more interesting. There's a little dark area here, another little one here. So all these little dark areas is going to help to give it some form. If you feel it's too blocked in, just drop a little water back on. It will always then just bring a touch of light back in and make it look natural. Definitely a dark area here. While I was waiting for the masking to dry, I finished off a few of those carrot tops. I'm going to see what happens if I just put a little bit of feathery leaf on. Just makes it look a little bit more interesting, I think, and a little bit more realistic. Using there's also some here. This is the foliage brush. That's all I need to do there, but that worked quite well. So sometimes you just have to think about what your picture needs and go with it. Right, I'm stopping with that now. Just want to put some green on this orange. Which actually is quite dark. That's where the stalk was. A bit of a one here as well. Can't see much. But that's made it look more like an orange. There's a bit of greenery just to put into these. So I'll just use the point of this brush. Stalk comes right around here. That's enough. There. So I think I'm just about there now. I'm going to dry it and decide what to do about the grounding and come back to you when I've taken the masking off. Okay, masking fluid off. Right, that was a bit of a marathon. It needs to be grounded, but I'm not going to put a background on. Well, certainly not at the moment. I'm just going to quickly put something underneath it to ground it. And I've mixed together several of the colours that I've actually used in the painting, so that it will kind of make a fairly natural colour that will suit, hopefully, the picture. Sort of shadowy colour. So putting water down first, not worrying about a level line for a tabletop or anything like that. I'm actually just grinding it. Obviously got to go around these tomatoes. Right, so load the brush with all these colours. Start over one side. And let the shadowy colour just float in the water. The dagger brush would do a good job as well for this. So I'm not looking for straight edges or anything like that. Just letting these colours mingle. It would need to get darker under here, so you could go again when this is dry under there, or actually just drop a little bit more depth in now. There's a lot of red coming out of my brush. So maybe a little bit of the ultramarine blue mixed in with that is going to actually give a bit more depth under here while it's still wet. Bring it through to the other side a bit. It's quite nice. But you could put, whatever you do, a bowl of fruit, basket of fruit, vegetables, whatever, make sure you ground it. You don't have to put a background around all the way, but you can if you wish. Don't forget a dark and a light side. bit more shadow under the actual objects. And then leave. Hopefully that'll dry up looking okay. I quite like a little loose grounding like this. It doesn't take away from the actual subject, but it shows that it's standing on something. Okay, done. As I said, that was a bit of a marathon, but if you want to take on a marathon, you've got 2 weeks to do it, because there's a catch-up week next week, with there being 5 Mondays in the month. So either take on a really big challenge or spend that time catching up on things that you might not yet have been able to get to. And I hope you enjoyed painting this week, and I have to say that I've seen some really, really wonderful still life paintings from you this month. I think it's really been enjoyable for you, because I've just seen such really good work. And yeah, it can be a really interesting thing to do. So you should also be very pleased with yourselves. But let me just show you quickly some of the things that I haven't put in the basket. I haven't put an apple in. With an apple you do need to bring up the colours and look into the apple to see all the different tones and colours that there are in there, which there will be a lot, and maybe use some dry brushwork over the top at the end of it, and that's when it really starts to look a bit more like an apple, when you get those sort of outside stripy marks on. With the banana, I've put purple over the yellow, which I think has made a very good shadow colour. An aubergine's got quite a bit of shine on it, but they tend to be a dull shine sometimes, depending on how new it is. But you don't always have to make a subject as dark as you actually see it. Don't forget it's watercolour, and you probably find it easier to, if you were painting something like an aubergine, not to have it quite so dark as you're seeing it, and put some colour into it. Okay, so that's that. If you could find some figs, they're quite nice to paint, but they don't have a lot of shine on them at all. They tend to be quite opaque, so try to keep them flat looking, which is again another challenge, but they have lovely colours in them. You can actually create an actual painting just by using one type of fruit or vegetables, and especially onions are good because they have a lot of aspects to them. You can peel some of the skin off to create the different tones and to make it shiny underneath, and in fact that creates a nice triangle, doesn't it? And it actually is quite a nice picture for the kitchen or something. So look out for shine and create something with just one fruit or one vegetable. I have actually done a bit of a pepper on there, but that's using the colours that I said before, or if you haven't got any of those cad-free reds, I use Scarlet Lake and alizarin crimson on this one, which also works, so you can try different colours. Right, well that's it, so I'll be back again on I'm not sure when, I think it's the 7th of February, yeah, the Monday. So catch up week next week, and I'll be back with you on the 7th of February, when I'll be demonstrating the loose and free techniques. Okay, take care, bye bye.